Sherbir, the BJP would argue that that the context of those comments was not investment advice, but a projection of the BJP's victory. That it was in that context that they were talking about how the markets, even the markets, the economy, corporate India wants a BJP victory. That's obviously what the BJP would argue. As a lawyer, what do you see at play here?
Barkha, I think there are three dimensions in total. Dimension number one is, should political leaders, including the Prime Minister and the Home Minister of the country, make statements in whatever vein regarding the investment in the stock markets? Absolutely not. That is not something that should be in the spectrum of political discourse in any manner or form. So that's dimension number one. Dimension number two is, what could be the objective of doing so? Objective number one, one way of looking at it is that there was optimism, and markets are generally fueled by optimism. To be able to establish something more, you need to establish incorrect intent or malicious intent. So there was optimism, and if this happened, the same retail investors would have made significant amounts of money, and not so much because of a BJP victory, but more so from the perception of political stability at the center.
And which is what the BJP is arguing, that it was A, made in the context of optimism, and B, they don't control how the markets respond, what the mood of the markets is to the politics of the day.
Fair. But I think there are two buts out here which sort of dovetail. Number one, the first statement of the Home Minister was as early as 19th May. So one argument, and without attributing malice, would be that with the hope that this statement happens and investments increase, it would also have a bearing on the the seventh phase of the Lok Sabha polls. So that is something that the assessment of that needs to be taken into account. We may have correlation, but not necessarily causation. I think the third dimension that I was talking about was more specific to the element of the exit polls and the results of those exit polls, the unscientific manner in which they came about, the fact that majority of them made these conclusions. And that is where we had the results of the 3rd of June and ultimately the 4th of June, where we saw the markets significantly dip. I think when you club the two issues, I think on issue number one, I wouldn't go as far as Sanjay on this, while he would be technically correct. I think my position is that politicians should not be commenting on what you should be investing in the markets. But the second position, which is far more egregious, is the actions of the exit pollsters. And what remains to be seen is whether or not there is causation between the BJP and the exit pollsters. Now, one way of really and there are only two binaries here. There's only a binary here. Binary number one is that markets increase further on the 4th, everybody is good, that gets attributed to the BJP. But that's a very serious charge. No political party should be making such statements and hoping that the credit of the markets comes back to them. And the second part of it is something more sinister, for which there needs to be evidence, and currently there's no evidence presented that the BJP and the exit pollsters were hand in glove to achieve this result.
Briefly, before I go to Tushar, given that the exit polls were wrong, that's one argument. But you are attributing some sort of malafide to the pollsters and saying that there's enough prima facie evidence to suggest that there's some link between the volatility of the market and the exit polls.
No, the action, look, an investor will make an investment choice basis all information that is presented to them. But when with the results that the exit pollsters put across, and I think they have to be held to account for being as wrong as they were, or there should be significant caveats and banners running on news channels saying that do not rely upon these are unscientific. It's basically either Pradeep Gupta or Chanakya or whoever else's imagination. Either we have those kind of disclaimers, but when they are communicated as definitive facts and retail investors looking not, I wouldn't say definitive facts, but when they're communicated with a sense of professionalism, scientific temper, and retail investors go and invest on the basis of and make investment choices on the basis of it, the exit pollsters have to be held to account. The example Sanjay gave of CEOs and other business leaders, I myself today, if I'm privy to insider information, go and make statements or make outlandish statements that are being a corporate governance leader in the country, go and make a statement about somebody being very good in corporate governance. It would be irresponsible of me to do so when the facts are entirely to the contrary. And I think that is really the crux of the matter as far as the exit pollsters are concerned.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying is for the rest, you need an inquiry. Is there a causation? Is there a link between the BJP and the exit poll and the public utterances?
That's
The
a
BJP
matter
would
of
argue
investigation.
that's a matter of investigation. I don't think the government is going to accept that demand. Even so, the issues that we are debating still remain. Tushar, how do you see it? Obviously, as I said, the BJP argues that it's baseless, that this was a political context, that the comments about the markets were made more in the context of the confidence of the markets in the BJP. But as it's turned out, given that the exit polls were substantively wrong, not even mildly wrong, but substantively wrong, do you accept that there needs to be some prima facie inquiry, at least into the exit polls?
Well, a few things. Let me tell you a story from 2017. This was December. The Gujarat Assembly elections were coming out, and the exit polls had predicted a BJP victory. Now, the counting started at 9. Until 9:30, the Congress was maintaining a very strong lead, and the markets were crashing then. Suddenly, 9:30, the trends reversed, and the market came up again. So, the markets do not depend on any political party, and the political parties definitely cannot depend on the market. The markets have a will of their own. Also, people do not buy stocks on the day when the exit polls come out. They buy it before. You do not buy when the market is on a high. You buy when the market is on a low. That's how basic rule of investment works. I also want to address Sanjay Jha's point that there is some relationship between the valuation loss and the GDP. I'm sorry, there's not. If you look at the US GDP, that's $28 trillion. But if you look at the combined market cap of NASDAQ and NYSE, that's more than $55 trillion. So to link the stock market cap being wiped out to GDP, I think that's an incorrect assessment. Now, you talk about the fall in the market on 4th June. Were the exit polls wrong? Look, Barkha, anyone investing in the market will not invest on basing their decision on the exit polls. That, the exit polls might give BJP a majority, so let me invest. Even if you look across the month of May, there was a lot of volatility in the market. There was a lot of up and down, and people were even asking that why is it after the second phase there is so much volatility in the market? Is the BJP not coming back? So the decisions that the investors take are based on the political sentiment they see. It has absolutely nothing to do with the exit polls. Even until the phase 6 of the elections, the markets were quite volatile. Now, post phase 7, the exit polls come out, suddenly the market goes on a high, 4 June it comes down. But when around 2 p.m., the news is confirmed that the BJP has the numbers to at least get a coalition in house, the markets were rising again. On 4 June itself, that the markets were recovering, and today we are on 7 June, the markets have wiped out their losses. They're already in the green. The investors who may have lost money have made money. We all are investors to a certain degree. We also understand how the markets work. So to link exit polls or that exit polls are somehow, linked to the markets or people should not be looking at exit polls to make us investments, I think that's a bit of an incorrect statement. Rahul Gandhi, who's calling out a scam, he, in his affidavit, stated that he has certain market investments. His own portfolio is 3.5% up. I mean, if he's saying that retail investors have lost money, Barkha, this is the script of 2023 February being repeated. When people were saying that, LIC is going down, SBI is going down. Mr. Jha was there with me on a channel when he was saying all this. But that is not how the markets work. It's not at all how the markets work. It's not at all how the investors work.
Okay, let me take your last point. I was going to bring that up, and you did. That Rahul Gandhi's own portfolio is up. The reason this is Sanjay is publicly available is his portfolio is available in his affidavit, right? So you can actually track it. There have been media reports on this that even Rahul Gandhi has recovered what he lost, as would have other people. The market has gone up, down, and up again. And it's back at an all-time high today. And that is the nature of the market. The market has a will of its own. Please respond, Sanjay.
Barkha, I think that's such a preposterous proposition. I don't think even it's worth responding on. Anybody with any portfolio of the market is on a bull run for whatever irrational reasons or rational reasons, the value will go up. I mean, Amit Shah's portfolio too has gone up. I mean, that's a very irrational argument. Let me focus on the bigger issue here. And I think Sherbir has raised what I think is the seminal problem that we're discussing. What has led to this entire conversation, right? That the exit polls were suspect, could be rigged, and that is the basic allegation that a lot of people are making today, is damaging the credibility of the big media even further because they are conduits in that entire process. And because of the exit polls forecasting a major BJP success, which was basically belied a few days later, that volatility played basically into the minds of those who probably leveraged it for their own short or long positions. Now, here is the simple point that I think the political system, which we all know is terribly corrupted, has to stand up and take accountability for two things. Number one, politicians, and this is unprecedented, politicians, and that to the two most formidable people, not just in the government, but in India, right? Everyone says this is a Modi Shah regime. They are openly talking about stock market buying. This is literally a signal. You know how, Barkha, we talk about dog whistling for political gains. This is literally a signal to the markets that go ahead and buy. It cannot be more unambiguous. And I feel that is an act of extreme irresponsibility.
But wouldn't but just to counter that, wouldn't a citizen make up their own mind? They're autonomous beings, right? If Modi says or Amit Shah says the markets are going to soar on the 4th June क्योंकि हम जीतने वाले हैं, that's just a neta talking. I'm not going to make my investment basis some neta talking of any party, right, Sanjay? I'm not
Barkha,
going to do that.
Barkha, I know.
I understand that it's election season. Wait, let me just understand it. I'm trying to understand it. It's election season. Everybody is going to make big claims. हमारी सरकार बनने वाली है, बीजेपी कहेगी, कांग्रेस भी कहेगी. Am I going to make my investment choice based on that political rhetoric? That's all I'm trying to understand.
Barkha, here's the short answer. The politicians go campaign and ask us for votes, but we make up our own mind. But here you're talking about a system where stock markets are basically a vehicle for people to invest, for some people to kind of raise funds. I mean, it is basically a public space which is meant to be transparent, where life savings are put in. And you have heard of cases, right? When stock markets get wiped off, people have committed horrible acts, right? Because they have been devastated.
I agree.
This is not something that you take casually at all. And therefore, my point, that's my one point. After that, I'm done. Pradeep Gupta, and with due respects to the gentleman who heads Axis, okay, his was one opinion or exit poll that said Mr. Modi will cross that 400 par, gaslighting number that Mr. Modi had been campaigning on since January. He was one of the 2 or 3 who said 400 par. Now, let me tell you, wasn't it the responsibility of Pradeep Gupta or the TV channel that he represented on that particular day to make a disclosure that Pradeep Gupta and Axis also has been doing polling on behalf of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and obviously under the instructions or knowledge of both the Prime Minister and the Home Minister? That is a critical disclosure that is conspicuous by its absence.
Okay, let me come in here because you've raised. I don't know about Pradeep Gupta's clients. I should say Pradeep Gupta has to speak for himself. Tushar, very briefly, then Sherbir, then Ashwani ji. Tushar, briefly, Tushar. Yeah.
Since Sanjay Jha made this point about gaslighting, Rahul Gandhi's equity holdings went from zero in 2014 to quite a significant amount in 2024. He's the one who's going around saying that Indian democracy in danger, Indian economy is in danger, yet his stock portfolio is up. So if you're talking about gaslighting, who is gaslighting? Again, Barkha, with great responsibility, I'm telling you, serious retail investors also, and the retail investors are also quite aware these days, do not base their investment decisions on the basis of any exit poll. They have a mind of their own, they have a will of their own, they understand how the macro indicators of the economy are moving, and that is how they invest. And last point, no one invests when the exit polls come out. No one buys in when the market is already on a high. You buy the dip, you do not buy the high. It's that simple.
Let me bring in Sherbir. I think Sherbir is as you identified. There are 2 issues and Sanjay is linking them, but can we link them is my question to you. Exit polls got it wrong. The exit polls are shrouded in some absence of transparency is a point that a lot of people would agree with. And the exit pollsters should be transparent about their other conflicts of interest. That's one point. And exit polls could have triggered some volatility in the market. The other point is to say that when Modi and Shah make political statements and even the market invests its confidence in us, somewhere they're involved, which is what Rahul Gandhi is saying, in triggering the market. Right now, these are two things where Congress is joining the dots. Are you joining the dots?
No, I'm not. And I think I agree partly with Sanjay, I agree partly with Ritesh. And let me put
With
this.
Tushar, not
Tushar,
Ritesh. Tushar,
my sincere
yes.
apologies. Tushar. My sincere apologies. And I'm going to define the issues in my assessment as follows. Assessment number one is that I do not believe whatever political differences one may have with the prime minister and home minister, with a great sense of responsibility, I do not believe that that they would have the intent, which is the critical component. They would have the intent to result in losses to retail investors. I think that's where we are stretching the ambit too far. That said, I do not believe it is the place for, in political discourse, for the prime minister and the home minister to make statements on buying stocks. Full stop, period, no ifs and buts as far as that is concerned. And the reason for that is that while Tushar rightly identifies that, look, markets go up, your portfolio goes up, it comes down, long-term holdings, but there are multiple types of investors. There are those who do short-term holding. There are those who do day-end trading. And we're not talking about the sophisticated investor who understands macroeconomics. The investor who would be swayed is where the prime minister and home minister hold a position of trust. And taking that position of trust, either on account of support or on account of the high and dignified office that they hold, do make a decision to enter. And we're not talking about the exit polls. So we're defining the issue differently. We're talking about their statements, which happened earlier, as early as 19th May, where the home minister made a statement to this effect. There is a statement of them making the statement, and coupled with there is the element of it being to see if there could be political gain derived from that, as you rightly said, whether the corporates are supporting us or the markets are supporting us. And I do believe that would be an election code violation, which should be assessed separately, but it cannot be equated that they were behind a grand conspiracy to cause losses to retail investors. I believe, political differences aside, we should not go that far. As far as the exit pollsters are concerned, I have a completely different view on the level of responsibility. I'm not privy to the facts Sanjay is, but if those facts are true, in any event, all of them, neither in terms of their disclosure of their methodologies, disclosure of their fundings, disclosure of the scientific manner in which they went about making these exit polls, they truly deserve to be put on the mat and truly deserve to be investigated as to what were the circumstances that resulted in them making the statements that they did make, with the shroud of it being professional and credible. I have no problem, if we can argue it ad absurdum to say that the exit polls, of course, people who invest in markets are supposed to know, nobody relies on exit polls. But the fact of the matter is that we had a market altering event that took place on account of their statements, and they deserve to be held accountable for these actions, and they haven't been. And if they want to say that there is all trash talk as far as what they do, then they better have that, and all news channels better carry massive caveats and disclaimers on screens, letting the world know that these exit polls are basically somebody's opinion, and after talking to 5 people.
Okay, those are strong, passionate words there. In our last few minutes, let's talk about what should happen next. Ashwani ji, without getting into political commentary, what do you think the new government should do? The opposition has demanded a GPC. I don't think a GPC is going to happen. But do you think that the exit pollsters should be investigated? How did they get it so wrong? Collectively, do you see some sort of pattern there?
See, nobody can read the minds of the people, and this applies to exit polls as well. And I'm very thankful to the Indian voters that they had not voted out the BJP-led NDA. Otherwise, what would have happened, that the stock markets would have crashed to a level of 60 to 65,000, and then there would have been a cause of JPC. But Indian voters have definitely done good by not voting them out. My humble submission here is, actually, I always tell you that I don't make any political statement, but I have to bring in a statement here. The statement is that, the leader of the opposition, he had been constantly making statements on Adani and Ambani. And when Hindenburg issue came, then Adani stocks lost huge. Nobody talked about the JPC at that point of time. You see, this is basically a nature of the politicians to speak out. Obviously, whatever suits them, whether it is Narendra Modi, Amit Shah, or Rahul Gandhi, whatever suits them politically, they make statements. But linking them to that level, I don't think that would be a good idea, and very can say not a very good way of putting out.